Hello and welcome to Super Cat World. I am your host, Cat Vine, and I'm super. Thanks for asking. Okay, you've stumbled upon Cat Calls. Cat Calls is one corner of the Super Cat World universe, and this is the corner where I have intimate and casual conversations with extremely cool people. And you know what? Most of the time, those extremely cool people are DJs, but not today. Not fucking today. I need you to make a big round of applause for today's not DJ guest, a fellow music journalist, a fucking legend. Give it up for Lily Moayeri. Woo! Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Torn Strike. My intro is goated, and so is today's guest, Lily. Lily, as I already said, is a fellow music journalist, and her bio, in her own words, music journalist since 1992, educator since 2004, podcaster since 2020. Shout out the podcasters who started during COVID, and Iranian American since birth. She's interviewed all your favorite DJs, all your favorite artists. That's on fucking point. That's on period, okay? That's on red. I'm making up slang. And I can't wait to pick her brain here on the show. She's such an inspiration to me. She's a wonderful support system. She encouraged me to start my newsletter, Cat Scrawls, which was partially inspired by her own newsletter and podcast, Pictures of Lily, where she explores her relationship with interviewees over the years. Hey, Regal Standard, shout out. I'm getting distracted by the chat. Jordan Streetzel, shout out. Love to see you all supporting an absolute queen. Queens supporting queens. Anyway, I was in the middle of an intro. Pictures of Lily is her newsletter and podcast where she explores her relationship with interviewees over the years. She is a master interviewer. She's an absolute machine. She conducts, writes, and publishes some like fucking 5 interviews a week. Like she was literally just telling me how she's doing like 5 interviews a week every week right now. And I don't know how she does it. And I am in awe. Okay, she's been doing this longer than me, and I can barely fucking get my hands on the keyboard some mornings. And she's just a beast. She recently launched the Vintage Archive edition of Pictures of Lily, which was apparently something the Chemical Brothers kept asking her to do. Okay, let that sentence sink in. In honor of that, in lieu of a usual music video, I'm going to play for you snippets of the recently launched Vintage edition of Pictures of Lily podcast, with specifically the episode about the Chemical Brothers, and get excited, you're gonna get lucky with Daft Punk, which you should totally listen to the entirety of these interviews. These are just really short snippets that she made for social media. But when we get back, we will be on the line with Lily, and you have to have your questions with you ready to go, because not only is this the interviewer interviewing the interviewer, but you are interviewing the interviewer while they're being interviewed by the interviewer. It's a whole interview, inception. Anyway, it's going to be fun. I want your questions. This is your show as much as it is my show. But when we come back, don't change the cat channel. You can't change the cat time unless you have some sort of magical power. I'm really on one today. This is 2 snippets of Pictures of Lily. I'll be back in a jiffy. Don't go anywhere. It's going to happen really fast.
Yeah.
So that was
That was what we did really, was mix up hip hop and acid house. That kind of style really.
In the middle of that, I guess Ed was tapping his cigarette ash onto the carpet at the ship, and I talked to him about it.
Are you just throwing ashes on the carpet down there?
Yeah, I'm sure this carpet is taken. It can handle it. Okay, so
start in the bedroom?
Yeah, we do the music in the bedroom with more focusing on having lots of different instruments rather than focusing on the desk. So the desk we use is very small, which is really a big difference with most big studios or even home studios where people have big desks. So the desk for us is really small, and it's really more about having the equipment. We have machines we like we think that sounds good, so selecting the machines and just having those machines and effects and just messing with it.
What are the machines? You actually have to name them with numbers.
What?
You have to give me names and numbers.
Okay. We have we have two kinds of machines, like the more old drum machines and more.
And as promised, Lily, Moayeri, I'm very excited that you enjoyed your intro.
Thank you for my infomercial. That was amazing. I couldn't have written it better myself. In fact, I couldn't have written it at all. That was like the greatest, most dynamic, organic infomercial for me ever. For me, for my life, for my career. I was like, I could put this anywhere. So
you are so welcome, and honestly, it's fantastic because I can tell that you're a writer. Like instantly, you're like you're rhyming, you're dropping bars. You're like, it's dynamic, it's organic. I'm like, what else? This is just gonna be a great like back and forth of people who know words. Like it's already. It's already exciting. See, everyone thinks that this interview is for them, but I'm doing it for me because now I get to just pick your brain and a more formal experience. But I'm so happy to have you here, and shout out everyone in the chat. I know that was probably a really fun clip for everyone. I know Torton Strike was already freaking out, going, she interviewed Daft Punk in all caps. Because of course that must be what everyone says to you when they find out you interviewed Daft Punk. And I particularly love that episode. I was refreshing on it as I was preparing for tonight, and like there's just all these little moments where like in hindsight they become such larger than life characters. I mean, they literally become characters. They stop being human, and like here he just sounds like this little like wayfish jit who's just like, I mixed it all in my bedroom.
It's interesting because what's is when I rarely bump into Toma, because he lives in LA part of the time, and I'll go over and I'll be like, hey, do you remember me? Or then, he doesn't. And it's like
love that.
years apart. And then I'll come back to whoever I was with. They're like, who is that? And I'm like, oh, Thomas from Daft Punk. Didn't you realize? And they're like, where? Oh, where? That's better than all of this other stuff when people are like so into them, and I'm like, well, you're in the same room.
That's just
it's like an informal place. You could have just like chatted to them about like anything, but you didn't even realize they were there.
Right? Maybe even you did. Maybe you had this like meaningless conversation about how shitty the shrimp is at the buffet or something, and it's just like, and that was it. And you spoke to a living icon. I've always believed that they were instrumental for me and in my experience as both a music lover and a music journalist, and I'm excited to get to the root of all that for you. But I'm fully aware that I say this as if I really know, but I think if I met them and they were in their people suits, they're just themselves, I'd be like, wow, it's such an incredible honor. Thank you for so much, thank you so much for your music and your artistic vision and blah, blah, blah. If I met them in the Daft Punk helmets, I'm pretty sure I would just be a sniveling fucking, I'd just be like, ah! I wouldn't even be able to speak. I'd just be like, ah!
I completely understand that. It's two different people. It occupies two different spaces in your head. I have that with with just one musician that I'm friends with who I grew up idolizing, and they just don't exist in the same place in my head, and it's good because otherwise there just would be nothing. I would never be able to be around him.
Name drop.
No.
You don't want to say who it is.
I'm talking about Boy George.
I knew you
because-
were, and I wanted you to say
Because
it.
like he saved my sanity as a fan growing up, but like because as you mentioned, I'm Iranian and I spent 10 years in Iran, and many of those were after the Islamic Revolution, where everything was so restrictive and oppressive, and I was getting like bootleg videos that were taped off TV in like Top of the Pops taped off of British TV that pilots would smuggle into the country, and then this like underground network would like come to your house with a briefcase filled with these like blatant bootleg stuff. Like it's on like this album is taped onto a cassette that's a blank cassette. It still says Sony on it. Wow. With like handwriting, and you're buying it, and of course the artist is getting zero money, pretty much like now. And yeah, and so like, and lots of videos, not video VHS, Betamax.
Wow.
Betamax of Top of the Pops and German variety show called Music Laden and stuff, and so that saved my sanity. And then and this is the 80s, so everybody's wild looking, and it's all coming from England, so it's all like the British bands, the Duran Durans, the Wham, Spandau Ballet, all that stuff. And then here comes George, who just like literally doesn't fit in with any of that stuff. Like as crazy as everybody looks,
right?
He looks
even crazier.
He's just on another level. So that really helped me because I related to him, because I was like, I'm like that. I don't fit in at all. This doesn't work for me. I don't fit in at school. I can't really like relate to anyone because I didn't really speak Farsi as a first language. And I was like struggling with like everything. I was like into music, into Western music. Everything that I was into was not what it was for everybody else. So just his existence helped, besides the fact that I love the music and everything. And then like instantly after meeting him, which was already a weird meeting, instantly he went into another place in my head, because the meeting was so bizarre. Because I was at a show here in LA, one of his shows, by myself, and this photographer came and said, "Do you want to go backstage?" Which sounds so totally sleazy. And I just looked at him and I'm like, I can take him. Like, if something happens, I can take this
Sizing
guy.
him up.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, I want to go backstage. And so I go, and I'm just like standing there, in like multiple dressing room kind of area, because he wasn't the only person playing. He was the headliner, but not the only person. And he just came over and he's like, "Here, come with me." And Boy George, and just grabbed my arm and pulled me into this like super narrow dressing room where it was just him and three of his closest friends, all of whom I know now. And I'm like, what am I doing here?
You were just like adopted.
I get it. These are your friends for like life. These are your close friends. And here I am. And so from that moment, because our initial like face-to-face contact was so bizarre, he just went to another place in my head. So I totally get that Daft Punk thing you're talking about, to get around full circle, where it's just like, there's the helmet dudes, and there's the regular dudes. Yeah. It's not like nearly as exciting as the helmet dudes.
Yes, like very, very cool. But like I understand that the people dudes they're people at the end of the day. They're doing the same shit as us. The robots, Boy George, all the makeup, the whole thing. It's a different species entirely. But there's so much that you just said that I already know I want to talk about and circle back to, and not as a launch point necessarily, but it's wonderful to hear and instantly relatable about the whole, I think people who really dedicate their entire lives to music, it's kind of because music is a safe space when it doesn't feel like there is a lot of safe space for you to begin with. And you're hearing a lot of messaging from people about how you're not right, you don't fit in. And then all of a sudden you see your ideals mirrored to you, not only mirrored to you, but like espoused. Like people are like, this is the way, and I look very cool doing it. And I sound very sure, even when the music is sad, it's still pretty sure of itself. So it's, once you're kind of hooked in that way, there's really no escaping it, I suppose.
No, they totally saved me in so many ways. And I've talked to a few musicians from that time who have told me they've heard stories like mine, where about like getting these bootleg tapes and like places where they would never think that people would know who they are. There are people that have come like, and it saved them or provided some kind of solace for them. And the Andrew Ridgely told me about that from Wham like last year. And he said that because he wrote an autobiography and he had a book signing in Manchester. And he said this woman came from like Afghanistan or something to Manchester to the book signing and told him that, my brother got this tape and I got it and I grew up and like listening to you. And now I'm here, now I'm here to get my book signed and all this. And Pet Shop Boys have told me that. There's been a lot of 80s artists that have told me that.
Yeah, and I think that, something I'm always telling people as well, when you are creative at any level, I mean, obviously these people are like the upper echelon of making it in music, but any creative at any level, when you feel really alone and like you are creating in this weird vacuum and you don't know who you're reaching, like guaranteed there's someone out there who's being moved by what you're doing and just doesn't have the ability or courage to say anything about it. Like that's what can be tough sometimes, but over and over again that lesson is like told to me in some form or another, or shown to me personally, But before we go much further, I already dropped a link in the Twitch chat for YouTube. I will drop it another time. I'll put it in the description box below where this will eventually live. But you do a beautiful job of telling this whole story in the book, The Life, Death, and Afterlife of the Record Store. It's yours. There it is. In your chapter, The Revolution Will Not Be Televised. It will be taped. Western music acquisition and pre and post revolution Iran. And
Thank you for that plug.
Absolutely. And not only is it a plug, I really do feel like that chapter is just a beautiful and heartfelt piece of writing. Everyone should grab it. Everyone should buy it and read it for themselves.
I don't make any money from it, so don't worry.
But still.
Nobody does.
She makes just clout.
Yes, it's all just for bragging rights.
She lives on exposure. She's learned to photosynthesize exposure, so it's fine.
Exactly.
I was particularly drawn specifically to the way that you describe this illegal underground network of, door-to-door bootlegging and these Betamax tapes and these cassette tapes, and you would watch the Top of the Pops rips, and then that would inform your purchase of a Duran Duran cassette or a Wham cassette. And you talk about how because everything was so underground, it also made it so much more important for you to find people that liked that stuff as well. And I related to all that because of the way that American kids romanticize the pre-internet music lover experience, where it felt like, oh man, you really had to dig and you had to know and you had to all this stuff and, it wasn't just fed to you. And like, to us, that narrative is just this really like, ho ho, back in my day. But like, to you, we're talking about something that is like actually illegal and could send you to jail. Did you have a sense of how heavy that was at the time? Did it feel dangerous to listen to Duran Duran? Like, truly? Like, how?
That's, it's interesting because I don't think about it, and then people ask.
Yeah.
And because you're not the only person that's asking. I'm also a teacher librarian, and I'm doing an Iran lesson. I've done an Iran lesson for the last couple of years since the latest protests have happened, and students have been asking me that. So I find that very interesting that it is something that people are picking up on that maybe I was doing or maybe I was feeling that I didn't pick up on. So thinking back, as far as I remember, my fear was getting caught for sure. more like caught, because the thing is that when you listen to it in the car, because my mom's a big music person, and we could not get in the car without having like all of the tapes ready to go. And like we already knew like, okay, we're going to play this, then we're going to play this is our playlist for like our whatever, even if we're driving to like dinner or driving, to
Wow, setting that serious mood.
We have to have that music. And so the concern was to keep it low enough in the car and have the windows up so that it doesn't leak out. So that part of it was for sure scary, because if it does leak out, then they can pull us over, they can take us to jail, and worse for me, I'm like, oh, I don't want them to confiscate my tapes. And like the tapes and whatever. So yes, that part was scary, but we wanted to keep doing it. So we were careful about keeping it as low as possible, which is, how hard it is to turn music down.
Oh my God.
Up high. And even now, like there's been valets who have told me your music is too loud.
You're like, no one will ever tell me that again.
I'm like, I love it that the valet is scolding me and being like, that's too hard. You're going to damage your ears.
Wow.
So what people have pointed out to me is that I was being rebellious, and that was my form of resistance. Certainly wasn't consciously a form of resistance. Right. I wasn't saying I'm gonna, go fly in the face of authority. I was terrified of authority. I still am, and I'm thousands of miles away, and I'm still afraid of the Iranian authority. Or the Islamic Republic's authority, rather. And it's just, so I wasn't consciously trying to go against them or trying to antagonize them or trying to even make them aware of me in any way. But that is I guess that was the real pushback. Like I was really pushing back, because I was like, I'm going to listen to what I'm going to listen to. I'm going to be into what I'm into. I'm going to be singing, English language songs really loud. I'm going to be dressing like the bands that I like. I'm going to be doing all of those things. Yeah. And, my hair was not this color. It was like lots of colors. And I was blonde, and it was really unattractive. And I was really excited about it. And so I think that kind of answers your question.
Yeah.
So subconsciously, I was definitely being rebellious towards the regime and resisting what was happening. Subconsciously. Consciously, I was just like, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. Yeah. I'm going to be into this music. And I had the support of my parents on it. And my mom had her favorites amongst the stuff I like. She listened to everything I listened to. And she'd be like, this song. She was more of a mixtape person. So she'd be like, I need you to make me a tape, and these are the songs I want on it.
Amazing.
So I would make like her mixtapes for when she was in the car without us. Yeah.
It sounds like your mom maybe is where you kind of got the music bug. Like, was obviously, maybe not obviously, but like, did she inform your earliest tastes and get you into music to begin with?
So it was both my parents, because this love for music it's like, I think you're either that person or you're not that person. Because we both are. We're just like, is it possible to not be this way?
Yeah.
Is there another way to be? But for us, there isn't. This is it. This is our only way.
Yeah. This is the way.
There is no other option. It's not optional. You can't be like, okay, I'm done being a music person now. So, I mean, early memories. I'm like 4 years old, and my dad has given me a record player. Those like side loading ones.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, she's 4. We can't have her touching needles and getting pricked and whatever. So,
but we need her to have a record player. So
she clearly is like asking for music all the time. So, and he gave me a stack of his 45s. And I was really unhappy with the sound quality, which I distinctly remember that. And it's just like a 4-year-old being like, this is not, I don't like the way it sounds. Like,
oh my God. I was pretentious as well. It must be this type of person. It's a critic. I'd be like, born a critic.
The needle, get me a better machine. And so it was like those early, like his records were probably like 50s 45s,
wow.
Like from American 50s music. And they were both like super into music. And then my mom, as I got older, I realized, okay, I have like a little partner in crime here. who's like way into music also. And like I told you, like I was telling you guys, it's we had the music in the car all the time. Yeah. And then I started developing my own tastes. And a lot of it was informed by what I was seeing on the screen, whether it was like Donnie and Marie show or Cher or whatever I was seeing, whether it was like the music variety shows that got piped in. This is pre-Islamic Revolution. And then post, it was just the bootleg stuff, which was mainly English, which is why my taste skews so English.
Yeah.
It's because people are like, oh, you're such an Anglophile. And I'm like, I literally grew up only hearing British music.
Yeah, I know. Listening to some of your interviews from those, the archive ones in particular too, it's like, I kind of hear British slang come in.
Please don't bring that up. I'm so cringe when I hear those. I'm like, oh my God, shut up. You sound so whatever that fake English accent.
Hey, if it's good enough for Madonna, you can do it too.
You got a case of the Madonnas. Yeah, that's what they said in Sex and the City. I had a case of the Madonnas before Madonna.
Take that. Where'd she get the idea from? I don't know.
Yeah, it's terrible.
So
still happens sometimes.
You moved out of Iran in 1986 with your family. Obviously, you've already mentioned how the being forced to listen to music very quietly has clearly affected the way you listen to music going forward. But like, where did you move to, and what did that feel like, and where did you start experiencing live music, and like what was that shift like? Did it just feel like you were literally like bursting out of a fucking cage? Like, did you go absolutely hog wild? Even though I know you've generally been mostly sober your whole life, so I don't mean it that way, but like.
Okay, so I got to backtrack a little because I just have to make sure that people know this so that I don't take away from other people's experience, because my experience is, I really don't have anybody who has the same experience as I do. I was born here in the U.S.
Right.
So that makes a big difference I feel in my whole experience.
Yeah.
Because I was born American. So that already puts me in a different category, which nobody in my generation, which is Gen X, Iranian, is not born in the U.S., but I was born here, so that's one thing. Another thing is that because of my dad's job, my parents moved every 5 years, so we didn't live in Iran, and I didn't speak Farsi. I spoke English as a first language, and I went to American school. So like this whole like up until after the Islamic Revolution, my experience was very like more American than it was Iranian. So that's one thing. And I went to, like I said, American schools, like with American teachers, American kids, learning American curriculum and all that. And then
hanging out with American kids in Iran, listening to British bands. Got it.
Not necessarily in Iran. It was also in Pakistan or whatever.
Oh, right. Okay, that's what you're saying. Yeah.
That was before. So that's like probably up until fifth, or including fifth grade. And then we came here on vacation a couple of times, once when I was like 8 and once when I was 14. So 8 was pre-revolution. And so when we came, and it was all East Coast, because that's where my parents were living when I was born. So I came here and I was like, oh, I'm home.
It made sense.
As soon as I saw a New York bodega, which was probably just a 7-Eleven with like a wall of like candy and like bubble yum and bubblicious, I was like lost my mind. And I was like, this is where I need to live. I need to live here. I need to live
in the candy aisle of the bodega.
Yeah. In the candy aisle of a bodega, like this is where I belong. This is it. And so that already like kind of triggered something in my head where it's just like, okay, that's where I want to be. Mm-hmm. And this was always where I was going to be because of college and stuff. My parents were going to send me here for college, but I was like ready from that moment and I didn't want to leave. And I told my parents, please just leave me here. I'll go to school. I'll be good. I'll get grades. Just come get me later. I'll live in the hotel we're living in now. I was genuine. I was like, I was putting a proposal in front of them. And then Islamic Revolution happened. I'm still into the stuff I'm into. And then we came back in 1983 when I'm 14. And at that point, I'm like already watching the bootleg tapes. I'm already into a lot of this stuff. And MTV is happening. And so
13
like,
is such an age of like, let me go.
I was just like so excited. Again, this was vacation, but I was like mainlining MTV, radio on all the time, all of this stuff. Like,
Oh my God.
just again, desperately be like, just leave me here. Just
God.
leave me. I promise I'll get straight A's. I really, really wanted to stay. But went back for another 3 years. So from when I was 8, I was sitting, this isn't a Farsi expression actually, I was sitting facing the US. And
Okay.
that means, you know, that my mind is already towards there. Exactly. That's my goal. That's where I'm going. And so to answer your question, when I came here, I was like, I'm home. So yes, I was like super excited to be here, not realizing that my parents were going to be like, curfew, you can't go out, you can't do this, you can't do that. They were like super protective, overprotective. And that was really frustrating because I'm like, okay, I'm finally here and I can't participate in anything I want to do. Like I can't go to music stuff, I can't go to concerts, I can't go to clubs.
That's like
And so
even
a lot of
worse
head-
somehow.
A lot of headbutting.
So close,
I
but
still
so far.
went. What's that?
So close, but so far.
So close, but so far. And I still, you know, they would take me to a concert. I'd be like, okay, it starts at 8. It's over like 10:30, 11. It's at Santa Monica Civic. It's like a 15, 20-minute drive. You can drop me, you can come get me. And like slowly, like they're like, okay, if it's like managed in this way,
Yeah.
they let me go to stuff. But then I had like a 3-month rebellion phase. And then the thing is, as you mentioned, I've not been mostly sober. I've always been sober.
Yeah.
And that was one of my parents' concerns, which is like, you know, you're around people that are older than you and they might pressure you into like drinking something, taking something, and then you're not in full control of your faculties, and then maybe something will happen that you don't want to happen. That was their main concern.
Which is
And, like,
reasonable, especially having a young daughter, you know, like
Yeah.
in an
then
even
more-
less policed time or like less culturally aware time than now.
As time went by and they were like, she really doesn't do anything. Like she doesn't drink, she doesn't smoke, she doesn't seem to be interested, and she's like literally only driven by music. It's
Yeah.
not by anything that's surrounding it. So they started loosening the reins a little and just being like, okay. And I was very honest with them as far as like where I'm going, what time stuff is happening, who's there.
Right.
Because there was nothing to hide.
Yeah.
The only thing to hide is if you're like taking drugs.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm not taking drugs. There's nothing to hide. I'm not even like going off with any of these dudes. Like we're just hanging out.
Yeah.
I'm like, I interact with them on like a friend music level,
Yeah.
but not really. I'm not really interested in them in any other way.
We're just geeks, mom and dad. We're just geeking out. That's all that's
They're on
happening.
stage geeking. I'm off stage geeking. It's the same. It's the same. Yeah.
When and where was your first rave experience? And
Ooh.
who was DJing, if you can recall?
I can actually tell you that. I had the flyer, and I believe somebody has stolen it.
Fucker.
It was from Manchester with Love, which was at the Palladium here in Los Angeles in 1990. It was Happy Mondays
Wow.
and Paul Oakenfold.
Wow.
I want to say Michael Cook, who was like a local DJ here, but he was actually from Manchester, but he lived here.
Wow.
And Michael has been trying to get that flyer out of my possession for years.
Is that who took it?
Well, then I'm like, I can't. It's my first one. And he's like, it's my first one too. And I played. That trumps your experience. But I actually like took it to like a magazine to get it scanned for them for like an article, and I have not seen it since.
Oh man, no. Okay, let's all of us write in, ask for the safe return of that flyer. Damn, that's sick. What do you remember about the show? What was the energy like? Like, I guess were you already into electronic music and that's why you were going, or what happened?
I was into that. Like, this is at the cusp. So this is like Stone Roses,
Yeah.
Happy Mondays, which was like my gateway
Yeah.
to raves, because I'm like, okay, so these guys go to these raves in the UK, and from that they make this like band music, and it's all like it's all one like ecosystem. So I was definitely into all that stuff already, but I'd not had like a firsthand experience of it, more like CDs and like
Yeah.
magazines and talking to friends. I had friends that were into it too. What I remember was I was wearing the wrong shoes. 'Cause super cute booties that had like 4-inch spike heels.
Wow.
That was an error. And I was wearing like really, really skin tight, like stretchy black gray jeans, and they were super. I mean, I looked very cute and totally inappropriate for the occasion. And I was like, I'm wearing my rocker girl clothes,
Yeah.
which is where I come from.
And you're about to go for
I know,
6 hours.
until 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
I felt like my legs were just gonna break off at the ankles. Or I was like, oh my god, I want to dance so bad, and I've worn completely the wrong shoes. And my friends, when I showed up, they're like, "What are you wearing?" They all were in Doc Martens already, and they're
Oh,
like,
yeah.
"You're supposed to wear these," and I'm like, "Oh no, we're going out. I'm wearing heels." But lesson learned. I never wore heels again to any type of ravey, clubby type of
Yeah.
thing after.
You
And I
know-
was like, nobody's wearing them.
Everyone's got to make the mistake once, and then you never make the mistake again. Yeah. I've given up on heels really almost entirely. Even if it's like, why? Even to walk to the car. No thanks. But knee surgery will do that to you, I guess. What's the point? Docs forever. Docs for life. Docs, the official sponsor of the rave lifestyle for decades and counting.
Correct.
I love it. Did you grow up on, obviously, it's interesting because even just watching Top of the Pops and MTV and all these outlets, like, that is music journalism. But, like, did you grow up feeling especially aware of music journalism? And did you ever think to yourself during those years of just constant consumption that was something you'd even do one day?
Okay, I love that question. That was a very good question that nobody asks because they assume they know the answer. I didn't know such a thing existed. I read music magazines when I could get my hands on them in Iran, which was like never, but I read music magazines. I really wanted them more for the pinups.
Yeah.
Like, pull out and put up on my wall, but I would read the articles and I would.
You sound like, I'm sorry, that just sounded like such a dude talking about Playboy. I mostly bought it for the pinups, but I did read the articles.
I did read the articles.
And they were pretty good.
Yeah, they were great. They were very informative. But they were very informative, and I remembered everything I read from them. And but I didn't realize it was a job. I don't know why I didn't put 2 and 2 together. It's just like, well, somebody has to write this. This is a thing that exists, or whatever it is. And when I got here, well, in 1983, I was like looking at a lot of magazines then too, like Bop and Tiger Beat and all that stuff, because those existed in the American schools. Like the kids would bring them to school and stuff, so I already knew about like these teeny boppy magazines. And then I started realizing, oh, okay, I need to be looking at NME and Melody Maker. These are the places that have like, and again, I'm like not connecting that like, well, we could do this as a job. Well, I should also mention that writing is not inherently my strong suit, because I'm a math person. I know are, but I mean, I've been writing since 1992. This is the only reason I can put 2 words together is because of it's not 10,000 hours. It's more like 50, 60, 70,000 hours of doing it. So now I'm just like, oh, I can kind of write and sound like a professional musician. But initially my interviews were really good, but my translating that into writing wasn't award winning in any way. But it was very passionate, you know, and like that's what I see when I dig up. These are my archives, by the way.
Yeah. Oh man, just grab a random one.
When I Main Street. Oh, this was a local magazine. But when I grab stuff and I look at it, I'm just like, my God, this writing is atrocious. Oh, PPM.
Hey, shout out.
I'm
That's
just
a
like, oh, the
beautiful
writing's
cover as well. That looks
terrible,
like,
but
is
I
that
love-
a
I think it's very
WMC
neat.
edition?
Maybe. Who's America's favorite DJ? That's what it says.
Oh,
But
by the way,
yeah.
I don't want to stop you, but Joey Headset says he thinks he found the flyer in question and he posted it to the Discord. So I dropped a link in the chat, and we'll have to investigate that when we're not
You are my
mid conversation.
hero, Joey.
Yeah.
Joey. Love you. Oh my God, I'm so excited.
But yes.
But yeah, but when I read these, I'm like, writing terrible, passion off the charts. Like, I'm so passionate. I'm so like I know so much about it, but
Yeah.
I'm not good at like, conveying it. So even if I thought that this is somebody's job, I definitely didn't think it was going to be my job, because I'm like, okay, but somebody who actually can put two words together should
Do that job.
I also didn't have any idea, like, well, how would you even start? Like, where would this happen? And,
Yep.
you know, mine started at school, so,
Yeah.
college paper. So, yeah, that's how it happened. And I have to shout out, as always, to Aidin Vaziri, who was the major music person over at UC Riverside, who covered everything I went to. He wrote about in our Highlander newspaper, which was only once a week. Then I have to shout out Stacy Cousino, née Osbaum, who was my first editor at the Daily Trojan at USC.
Wow.
Because when I came to USC, I was like, daily paper, no music coverage? I went to like 6 shows last week. Where is that? Aidin was here. We'd have like 6 stories about it.
Yeah.
So they had an ad in the paper and I answered it. And like, I was like, you don't cover anything I go to. I go to things all the time. They're like, we don't have anyone. Now we have you. And I was like, but I can't, I don't know how to write. And they're like, well, we'll teach you.
That's fucking awesome. I
That's
love
how
to. Dude, shout out College Papers. That's where I got my start. Like, there's also just a low stakes freedom to figure it out, right? Like, you're like, I don't write, and they're like, whatever. Like,
We'll figure it out.
This whole operation runs on bootstraps and bubblegum. Like, whatever. Get on, come on in.
Keep in mind, this is the 90s, so
Yeah.
college radio, college papers, college was the entry for all bands.
Yes.
Entry for No Doubt. All these bands that are headlining
Tastemaker.com.
That is the start of it.
Mhm.
That is the start of everything. Is what college was the absolute gateway for all bands. All bands.
I wanted to know, how did you file your stories in the 90s? Did you have to physically
College
go?
paper or regular paper?
All of it. All of it. Just tell me.
College paper, I went and I wrote it out on a piece of paper, and then I typed it into the system, and then we H&J'd it, which is what we used to call, like I'm like, I don't know, do you think is this too many? And they're like, let's H&J it. And that's some term that I don't know. But I didn't go to journalism school.
Right.
So I'm like, oh, H&J. And then I would H&J it, and it would, columnize, put it in columns.
Oh, okay.
Like, so was taking.
Wow.
That was college, but that is such a good question. People don't know. They don't know. They're like, oh, did you just email it? I'm like, I don't even have a computer.
Via what, bitch? Like, yeah. I was like, maybe she faxed it.
Initially, well, faxing, because then I would have to type it. I put it on discs.
Shout out
So I
discs.
started putting it, I used my sister's computer, and I started putting it on floppies. And then I would like drive the floppy over to the magazine if it was local. And if
Yeah.
it was not local, I'd put it in an envelope and mail it. So keep in mind that this is killing your deadline time. So if your deadline is Friday, you have to be done by Wednesday morning and at the post office by Wednesday morning, so they get it by Friday. And then if you typed it on a Mac and they have
Fuck
a
off.
PC,
Oh,
it's
no.
not going to read.
Oh,
the difference.
no.
And vice versa.
I was thinking the other day about how I'm just so fortunate to basically exist professionally in a very connected, and shout out Czar Cruz, yo, what's up? because even in the sense, I always think about it in the sense of like, I do all of my research on the internet. And like when I was a college student, I actually would sit and go through the microfilm and microfiche and all that shit. And like, I was into it. I was just like interested, so I would do those things. But like, I don't have to do those things. It's good that I know how. But like, I've thought to myself so many times, like my career has been so predicated on the idea that I can write for these national publications from where I've been. And like, would that have even happened / have been so possible before? But like, you're saying yes, I would have just had to have been even earlier on my deadlines and like.
Yeah, and that was really.
I would fucking freak out if I had to mail my work.
And we're hoping it gets there, and you don't have another copy. And like, I have to also shout out Tamara Palmer, an old colleague who she had email way early, and she was a neighbor, so she's like, bring it over here, I'll email it for you. And I would take my disc over to her place, and she lived in my neighborhood, and so she would stick it in, and she's like, there, you got it. And she would buy me 2 days.
Wow.
And as soon as I got email finally, which was at a job, not even at home, then like I was like, okay, this is cracking open, because I was like emailing people all the time, emailing editors and being like more communicative and not just having a call and wait for them to call back and stuff. So it just things like ramped up a lot more just because the communication was more fluid. More opportunities, I'm sure, started coming their way. All right, but let's not get too far advanced here. I want to know what your first interview was. What do you remember about that experience? Did you pick it, or were you told to go do it? Up until 2000 and maybe 12, I picked everything.
Nice. Hell yeah. Love
like
that.
The first 20 years, I picked everything I was doing.
That is wild.
And I don't recommend it. I recommend just taking what people give you, because your world is so limited when you only do the stuff that you like.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful to do the stuff that you like, and why, that gives you so much life and keeps the passion going. But when you do stuff that you don't know about or you're not actually into, it's so much greater.
Mm-hmm.
You learn about more stuff, you get into things that you weren't into, people know you that would have never known you otherwise because they don't like what you like. But my first interview was with the Inspiral Carpets, another Manchester band, in 1992 in October. I know this because I just looked it up.
Okay.
I looked it up not long ago, and I was just to see if it was something I wanted to post, and I loved them at the time. They were like my second favorite band. At the time, they were my second favorite band. I loved them. And I was interviewing the guitar player, and it was at the record label at Elektra. And, we're like around about the same age. And, I'm like, like an excited girl who's like, Actually, that was my second interview. Sorry, that was my second interview.
Taking it back. Joey Headset says loves them. This is how it feels as a classic sad banger.
Classic, nice. Joey's got great tips. Sorry, the first interview was the Sundays. And that was actually easier for me because they weren't favorites.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, it's good to like go in
it's
without
hard.
like my mind. Yeah,
it's hard when you really love it.
But they were so kind and so generous and so sweet, and they were so big at the time, but they were just like being like, and I was like, this is my first interview, I have questions. My editor helped me formulate questions. What are your inspirations, and how do you feel you like are you in line to be like to take over where the Smiths left off?
My
like
God.
stuff that I like as a fan, I would like never think about this stuff. As a fan, I would just be like, but as a music journalist, I'm like, I have to like be probing and like get behind and underneath things.
Yeah.
And they were totally answering me, and I'm like, I don't know all this stuff. It's so exciting. But they were so sweet. So sweet. And then Inspiral Carpets was the second, and by then I'm like, I got this.
Yeah. Amazing.
And that's when I met Noel, because Noel Gallagher was their roadie. I met him that night with
Noel
them.
Gallagher was the roadie, ladies and gentlemen. Always be nice to everyone on the tour. You never know who's gonna be the next Noel Gallagher.
Facts. Wow. You definitely left an impression. We're just yammering on.
This is how it goes. Yeah, not the inspiration questions. Our fellow journalist in the chat. Jordan wants to know, what's your sign, Lily?
Taurus.
A Taurus.
It's my birthday in like 2-something weeks.
Oh my God, happy early birthday. I should have brought a fucking cupcake for you. Like,
I'm still trying to not eat sugar.
Here, you can have a birthday plastic ice cream cone.
With eyes.
Your treat.
Trust you to have like super fun stuff.
Oh, there's just all sorts of goofy doodads back here. I love that though. I love that it sounds like you earned your confidence quite quickly. And that was what college was for me too. It was just like learning to just be like, I'm asking you for this information. I remember there was like a protest happening on my campus. Shout out protests on campuses and stuff. But I was like, first, the student paper in my reporting class. And I was like, I'm going to go up and I'm going to ask everyone what is going on, And I said it in that voice. And then I noticed that there was this other girl who was also a journalism student, like following me everywhere I went with her recorder. And I don't believe that I was like, what are you doing? But she was just like, hey, I'm so glad that you're like asking these things, because now I'm getting these quotes. And I just remember thinking like, you're not going to make it if you can't like go and inject yourself into the situation and be like, I have a question. This is my question. And, I think that there's like a definite art to interviewing, and, you certainly know that now. I know that now. Sar knows that now. But it's a really interesting thing to be a part of. Like I always say that it's like having an incredibly intimate conversation with a total stranger, like right now, and sometimes it goes really well and sometimes it doesn't go as easily well. What do you do in a situation where the artist doesn't seemingly want to say very much, or like doesn't seem to really be opening up? Like everybody's different, but I wonder because if I tried to answer that question, I'd just be like, I don't know, I just like try really hard to like figure out what they want to talk about. But that's not a real answer. So what do you think?
It hasn't happened a lot, thankfully. Usually they're, they want to promote their stuff. So, and they're on the autopilot and whatever. And they've been really good. There was like one time where literally the artist was just like, no, I'm not answering this question. It's in the bio. And I'm like,
wow.
I'm like, well, lots of things are in the bio. That's what the bio is for, is the starting.
It's a jumping off point.
That's what the bio is, just like, here's some stuff for you to know about this person so you can ask them about it.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, but like, I'm not reprinting the bio.
Right, exactly.
I was just like so taken aback.
Can you tell me more about that? That would have gut punched me. I would have been like, okay.
Oh, she did it numerous times in the interview. She did it numerous times to the point where I was like, you know what, I'm just going to let you go. And I just left it.
Yeah.
And I think maybe she answered maybe 3, maybe 4 questions, like properly. But even those, she was put up. I was like, why are you doing interviews?
I know.
Like, just don't do them. Like, what do you think your expectations should be?
Yeah.
And it was odd. And I told my editor, and like, I was like, this was a really bad experience.
Yeah.
I was not new at the job.
Yeah. Oh, it could happen anytime.
Yeah. And I was like, this is new. And yeah, if they're not talking, I'm still going to like plow through everything I was going to ask.
Yeah.
And be like, okay, thank you. And the thing now is I'm like most of my writing now is more my writing and less their voice. It's the information they've given me in the interview, but it's not their voice as much.
Yeah.
So it's more like, this is how I see them, or this is them filtered through my lens, or whatever it is. So yeah, if you want to be that kind of person, I can totally make you sound. If you want to be uncooperative, I'm going to make sure that in my story, I convey that you were deeply uncooperative. And really put out about asking questions. I didn't have that kind of guts before, and I didn't really have language for that before.
Yeah.
Now I totally do.
Yeah.
Except as you and I know, now we're not allowed to do that.
Well, so here we go. Sark Chris, I was like, we're getting to this. No worry. Hey, there's no such thing as showing up late to the Cat Calls stream. You showed up right on time, buddy. I'm happy to see you in the chat. Okay, with a banger of a question. Lily, well, actually, it's very kind. It asks what both of us think about the state of music journalism right now. In parentheses, saying, admitting that obviously he knows a bit about how I feel because I told the world. But yeah, I do want to talk about this, and I firstly wanted to ask how you experienced the shift into digital journalism, because that affected not just the way that you as a journalist filed your story and how you communicated with editors, but it also changed how and I don't think the word content is a dirty word. I think it's just a word, but I understand why it might make some people upset, but like how the content was even presented, right? At least over time. So how did you witness that shift? And then we can just kind of like go into our deeper thoughts about today.
Because I've been doing this 1,000 years, I experienced multiple shifts.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like when I first started, there was tons of magazines, like physical magazines, local, national, glossy, not glossy.
With many pages.
Many pages, not like, I'm going, oh, this is a stapled magazine versus, oh, this is a bound magazine. Like I knew all the differences. And like, oh, this is a newsprint magazine, or this is a magazine that has a glossy cover but newsprint on the inside, or a glossy cover, not newsprint, but black and white on the inside, color on the cover.
That's like my favorite scene from American Psycho, by the way. Glossy cover, non-glossy inside. Let's see Paul Allen's.
Wow.
Just kidding.
Wow. And that's awesome. But so yeah, I experienced so many different there were so many different kinds of magazines, and everybody paid bad except for like Rolling Stone, except for the
biggest
magazines
names
that you saw in supermarkets, which is by the way still the case. They paid well. If you didn't find it in a supermarket, it paid not well. It paid 10 cents a word if you were lucky. If you were lucky. Which, by the way, is still how much we get paid.
I know, yeah.
So from 1992 to 2024, no raise in music journalism rates. Yeah, exactly. Except we have to do more work for that. Anyway. So I should say that I'm a late adopter to everything in life. Everybody thinks I'm like really like on the cutting edge, and I'm absolutely not. I'm very resistant to change and don't want it to happen.
It's that Taurus energy.
Is that what it is? It probably is. And also it's like, no, I don't want to. Like, I don't want to participate in this new thing that's happening. And in many cases, that's actually kept me afloat, the resistance, weirdly. And in other cases, I've had to meet halfway or part way or even all the way. But like the resistance has worked for me. But okay, so shift to digital, the first thing that happened was all my money went away. All my regular outlets went away.
Yeah.
The magazines went from this to this, so where I would have maybe 3 features in an issue of insert name of magazine here. Now I'm like, oh no, we don't have any room. Yeah. So I have nothing in this issue. has that happened ever since I started writing things? Like, so for the last 5 years, 6 years, 7 years that I've written for this magazine, I've had multiple things in each issue, and now I have 0 because they went from 100 and whatever, 20 pages to 50 pages. So yeah, there's not a lot of room for stories, period, let alone for me. So that was like a huge like unplug of cash. Not that I was making all that much money before, but I was like, well, this is gone.
Yeah.
Like this income, like I would make like X amount of dollars from this magazine. By X amount of dollars, I'm talking about like $250 a month from this particular magazine, and that is no longer something that is a regular thing. So that was an ugly shift. And the thing is that you have to wait for the publications to catch up first,
right,
before you figure out what you're going to do, because they don't know.
Oh my God. And I was even just generally a consumer at the time, started going to journalism school when it was like really hectic, like cataclysmic shift to digital, and the recession and everything. And yeah, I attest that like no one knew what the fuck was going on, and like everyone was just like I had these wonderful professors who were award-winning journalists, and not just not necessarily music, but just award-winning journalists in Florida who were walking into classrooms to like do a semester looking like fucking war veterans, who just like were like, I don't know what's going on out there, it's a bad time to do this, but here I am teaching, I guess.
But it's just, so that was one shift, and then there was like the spike of like here everybody has a website, everybody needs content, and they paid well, so that was a huge boom. But it lasted like 7 months. It didn't last very long, but I cashed out during those 7 months. Like I wrote for everyone, like all the time. Because it was like I'm doing one interview, but it's going to like all these different websites plus 2-3 print magazines.
Wow.
Back then, I could double, triple, quadruple, whatever up on one interview. I can't do that now.
Yeah.
Like, I'm. It's not even. It's just so frowned upon. Like nobody would do that without like double checking.
Yeah.
Triple with all your magazines and be like, hey, I'm going to write this for this place, but for you, it's going to be a listicle.
Right.
It's like something entirely different worlds. They're not going to publish on the same day. I'm not going to repeat not one word from one. And I just don't even like doing that. It's too much work for me.
Know that feeling. Yeah.
Whereas before I was just like one interview and ka-ching, 5 outlets. And that was really great. Wow. And also, labels didn't want artists to like waste time doing interviews for websites, but they still wanted them to do magazines. So I got the interview because of a magazine assignment, but then, spread it out over. So that was very brief. And then, all this blog stuff started happening, and I just was like, I don't know what it is. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. Totally the opposite of you, who just like leaned in and just catapulted your career from there. Yeah. I was just like, I don't want to blog. I don't want to. And it wasn't even like I didn't know how to make a website or anything. I'd already been like putting content up on other, like being a content manager or whatever at other places. Mm-hmm. So I was like, not scared of a website. I just don't want to do it. I don't see what the point is. I don't know what this kind of writing is. I wanted to be assigned stuff. I wanted to pitch things, get it assigned, and write it like I'd always written it.
Yeah.
All of that to say, because I like stuck my feet in and was like, I want to pitch stories that I want to write. I want to get assigned them, and I want to write them. I feel like that's why I'm still working.
Yeah.
Because I never did the other stuff. I never did the blog stuff. I never did the email interviews. I never did the like tons of content. By that same token, I don't know how to write a clickbait headline. I just can't. Luckily, most of my editors write them themselves. Right. And I'm like, thanks for doing that. Thank you for writing something that will make people click on my story. Yeah. But some editors want you to do it. And I'm like, I don't know, how about this? And they're like, no. And I'm like, I'll give it another stab, but I really don't know how to make things like titillating,
Yeah.
enticing for people to click on.
Well, I think what's really interesting about it, that everything you just shared too, is how much what you're saying mirrors what's happening now. And that was something I was trying to get across in the newsletter that I wrote about the state of modern music journalism, because I was like, this has happened before, it will happen again. We are all panicking, and rightfully so, or, you know, whatever, but like, let your panic be as inspirational as possible, because right now we find ourselves in another situation that feels like a very big crossroads. And I hesitate to say that it's as dramatic. I don't know. It's dramatic in the sense that, like, a lot of us are, once again, where'd all my money go? Where'd all the opportunities go? Like, those things are becoming tighter and tighter as, economically speaking, publications have to tighten their belts, just like every other industry in the world right now. Every other industry in the United States, like, we're all feeling it. I know everyone in the chat, even if they're not a music journalist, knows that it's tight times. But there is, in my opinion, room for something else to grow now, which is necessary. But how do you feel about where we are right now?
I feel like you do, because I was thinking what you were saying in your newsletter in the back of my head, and then your newsletter dropped in my inbox, and I'm like, and she articulated it. She covered everything. It's a 360 on it. And people have asked me that music journalism question a lot over the last few months, and I just keep quoting from from that newsletter.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I have a writer I follow. I'm like, you know, her best writing is her newsletter. And I'm like, no filter, no worries about busting relationships with publicists or editors or anything, or magazines. And it's just like, this is the real truth. And I think that that's amazing. And like what everybody always wants, which I think is unrealistic, and I think it's always been unrealistic, is people think, well, I can't make a living from writing about music. And it's just like, okay, wait, has anyone made a living from writing lines about music, like, ever? I'm talking about like strictly music writing, strictly freelance, not with a steady staff job.
It's tough.
This is not something that was an ongoing option for ever.
Yeah.
Like, it really hasn't been. So, like, I remember when I was like full-time music writing, really putting so much effort into it, I made exactly enough money to pay my bills for 6 months out of the year. And I was like, okay, that's not going to work.
Yeah, unsustainable. Your schedule today is unsustainable. I don't know how you do it.
And I was like full throttle that year, where I was like, I have to, you know, I had overhead, I had mortgage, I had all this stuff. And like, I was like, I have to, I'm going to lose my place. It's not just that I'm going to have to move back in with parents. It's that I put my name on like, this is it. This is mine. I have to pay for it. So it wasn't like I didn't have any other option. I had to make it work. And it was really, really challenging. And I've talked to people who are just full-time freelance writers, and they all of them have like one steady place.
Yeah, you got to have at least the one steady place.
Without this, I can't make it work.
Yeah,
and
which is a scary place to be as well.
Very terrifying. Like, it gave me so much stress, and I kept on going for these like massages, because my neck, I could feel the tendons in my neck just like they just turned into wood. And like because they weren't just massage therapists, it was like they were licensed like Chinese with herbal and everything, like Chinese medicine. And they were like, okay, this is what's going on. Every time you come to us, we stretch these out so that blood can flow, so that you don't have these headaches and whatever. But then you go home, and 3 days later you come back with everything just like compressed again, and no blood getting into your brain. And I was like, I'm a music journalist. this is my reality. And I was like, I can't, I just can't. And so I also got into teaching, and which has been like unbelievably rewarding. And as much as I started maybe because of the stability, it's not why I've been doing it for 20 years.
Yeah.
You can't do something for 20 years for the paycheck. That would be soul destroying. It actually gives me so much. And I love having the balance of the two things, because music journalism in the end is quite egotistical. Seeing my byline, I like that. But being an educator, it's not about you at all. It's literally only about helping your students and getting them to the next level of their life. And that is all not about you and only about them. And I really like the balance, because you can get involved in your ego.
I feel that 100%. This past school year, have been doing a volunteer program down here, and I go and I hang out with a 6-year-old, and we read together for an hour every week, and it is like the light of my life that I do this.
Oh, great.
It's awesome. It's awesome. It's so great. Shout out Jaden. Jaden's a very good reader. Yeah, it's really fun. I actually signed up for career day at the school too later this month, so I'm gonna go talk to the kids about being a music journalist, which I think will be really fun and different from what they're used to.
Make them stickers.
I'm bringing stickers. Yes, absolutely.
Like the super catalogs.
But I want to also, because I'm a big fan of like having actionable steps and not just bemoaning the shitty like situation. I think that what I hear from you is keep going on the things that you really feel matter, or like the work that matters, the work that you want to do, the work that you want to see. I know that I feel very strongly now too about, like, you brought this up and I wanted to chat with you about this too, like that courage to just say what you're really thinking. And I think that as critics, we have been disempowered over the last 10 years or whatever by this like false reality where because an artist was going to share your article on Twitter or Facebook or something, that it was suddenly going to get a bunch of clicks that it wasn't going to get in the first place. But like, I mean, like, not that it's all about like tearing people down, because I don't really think that that's super helpful, but like just being honest and forthcoming. And for me in the newsletter, so much of that has been this exercise in like sharing myself. And you said as well that at this point in your career, you're doing a lot more of sharing yourself. And I think that's something that you can only start to feel comfortable doing when you've had some experience. And Zarkaruz, I know you've done that as well. And that has come with experience and years. But so at least maybe those are some options. Like, I think that being like courageous enough to really just put yourself out there and say what you want to say and stand behind it. But what do you think are good things to keep in mind for the music journalists out there who are feeling kind of like, where the fuck do I go? What the fuck do I do? What is happening?
I think what you said, which, as usual, is a better articulation of what I was trying to say earlier, is what is it that you want to write? What is it that you want to say?
Yeah.
I don't think that any outlets are not looking for ideas. They all want ideas. And by ideas, I don't mean this artist has an album coming out and I want to interview them about the album. I'm not talking about that. You can pin it to that, but what's the hook? What specifically do you want to talk to this artist about when it comes to them or their place or whatever it is? Yeah. So it's more about, so I think that having ideas that's a gold. They all need ideas. Yeah. They all want stuff that will make them look good as an outlet, that has, good stories, not just clickbait, but actually good stories. But also, there's only so much the editors can think of to put up on the site. There's only so many press releases they can regurgitate as news and content, whatever. They do want stories. They do want ideas. And I feel like if you, like, what is it you really want to write about? Like, pitch that. You know, it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be like your conventional stuff. It can be like, I want to write about this weird experience I had. I want to write about like whatever happened in the context of music or not in the
Yeah.
context of music, or this is why I hate Coachella, or let's like
Yeah.
whatever. Oh, I could write that story. Um, but just there's just a lot. I mean, I pitched like so many festival stories. They took them all.
Yeah.
None of it was, and I really wanted to do it. I'm like, I want to shine a light on these festivals. I want to shine a light on these festivals, and I want to put it in. I want to do it in this way. And I was like, so I have this idea about festivals, and like, they took them all. Like
Yeah.
every magazine that I put it in front of, they took them, and I was just like, oh wow, okay. And I usually don't come up with ideas. Usually they're just given to me, but. What I'm saying is like that festival story was something I've been wanting to write for like 2 years. So finally I just like opened my mouth and I was like, oh, so, I want to write that. Let's not go to Coachella. Let's not go to Lollapalooza. Let's not go to Burning. Here's some other festivals.
Yeah.
Here's some suggestions.
Shout out Desert Days.
Yeah, shout out Desert Days. But that's what I said to Spin, and they're like, we love it. And I was like, oh, cool, yes. But I wanted to do that for like 2 years. I could have done it 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But, and also like, LA has all these great festivals happening to the point where it's like actually blowing my mind. And so I was like, well, what about all of these festivals happening in LA? What about all of these gigs happening around Coachella? And all those became stories. And I'm just talking about like recent examples, but the story that I pitched the LA Times, in 2019 about Iran, about my experience with the bootleg rings and underground network and whatever, that was something that an editor of mine years ago said, I want you to write about that. And I was like, I don't have that kind of talent, but he put the idea in my head that this is something that people would be interested in. Because I was like, why would anybody want to read that? And then when I grew up, I was like, okay, I've come around to the point where I think that maybe I can write that story. And so I took it to the editor with like, I want to write about this, but I don't know what the story is, but I wanted this to be it. And so he kind of helped me formalize it into something that would be like current, but referencing my experience. And then that was like the starting point of all the writing I did for Iran, about Iran and stuff. But I like what you're saying about actionable. I just don't feel like any editors out there, if you come to them with a good idea, they're not going to say no.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm inspired by that.
They're going to figure out a way to do it. And I mean, I know that everybody doesn't want to like do stuff just for the sake of doing it, but there's so many composers I talk to, for instance, who have composed the scores for big films, and like their first 2-3 films were like independent. A friend of theirs was making it.
Yeah.
They made the soundtrack to that film, and now they're scoring like blockbusters for Ron Howard. And they have a studio complex. And I'm like, okay, but why does every single thing you would do have to like be a money thing? If you really want to write about music, then it shouldn't be about the money.
Yeah.
Then it should just be, it's the same as making music. It's just like, well, if you need to make music, then you should just make music.
Yep.
You should make music and not worry about the dollar amount or anything like that. And then see what happens. If you take that pressure off of it, if you take that money pressure off of it, and I'm not saying that we all need to make money. I understand that. I'm just saying, if you have this passion, then it should be about the passion, and it shouldn't be about what you're getting paid. I mean, I'm just excited like these festival stories are out. I can get it's not like I got paid big money for them. Let's get real.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I don't even care. I don't care. Like, whatever. If I matched up the money with the amount of effort I put in, that would really depress me. And my dad used to constantly remind me, he'd be like, oh, you made less than minimum wage on that.
Thanks,
minimum
Dad.
wage was like $5 an hour. And I'm like, wow, way to ruin my cover story.
I know, you're right. But it's the cover. But I'm a music journal. I love that so much. Lily, thank you so much. That's such a beautiful mic drop. And I was laughing because one of the questions I wrote down was like, why do you keep doing it? Like, when we all know that the money is shit and everything is rough, but you already summed it up. It's like, we don't have a fucking choice, bitch. Like, this is what we do. We love it. It's like, I'm out here doing these, absolutely not making minimum wage doing these, but love it. How did you enjoy the experience? How was it being interviewed by me?
Fun. And it's like questions that people don't ask, not even in like any kind of setting.
Love to hear it.
I have to like think a little bit or just be like, okay, this is definitely like some misconception that maybe people have. Not you, I'm talking about when people don't ask because they've already decided the answer. And I'm just like, that's not my experience at all or whatever it is. But it's forgot what I was going to say. That's the first time I forgot what I was going to say. That's pretty good.
Hey, got him.
Oh, I was going to say that, I say this as someone who doesn't have kids, can spend time on the stuff that I want to do.
Yeah,
and
same.
I do have a steady job that,
everything
so
with the caveat.
don't have any pressure that people have when they're, I don't want to minimize anyone or discount anybody's time factors, financial issues, all kinds of things. I do know that so many people I know make a living doing this. They like hustle to do this, and also they need the assignments to like make up the difference between like a steady check and actually being able to pay bills. So I'm saying that that's not my situation right now. But I do also only get like at most 5 hours of sleep a night. So that's where
There's always a trade.
There's always something. I have not gotten sleep like ever.
Not hey, add that to the bio. Haven't slept since 1992.
Well, since 2004, since I became a teacher.
There you go.
I used to sleep. Once I became a teacher, I have to get up at between 5 and 5:30 every morning. So if I have to get up at that hour and I'm still writing an article, like I have to write the article until it's done because it's due.
And then Justice are like, can you do the interview another day? And you're like, fuck you.
That's some insider stuff where I was like, what?
Wait, we are getting close to time. I'll have to have you on the show again sometime. This is really fun. But this is pertinent to what's coming after our chat. Tordenstrike says that she doesn't really have a great question, but wants to know what your hair care routine is other than being fabulous.
Okay, so my hair was straight growing up. I know. It was super, super straight. So my biggest fear in life, my first biggest fear is wrongful imprisonment, which is because of
which we understand the background of.
The Islamic Republic. It's completely unreasonable and totally understandable. My second biggest fear is that my hair will be straight again. Because I hated my straight hair, hated it. And I kept on like, when my hair was wet, I tell my mom, can you put it in braids so that when it dries, it'll be like, and I looked terrible. And like, I would like walk around with the curling iron when I was really smaller and be like, curl my hair. I want to look like Nellie Wilson on Little House on the Prairie. And she'd be like, this is a pointless exercise. By the time I get to this side of your head, this side has gone straight.
Oh no.
She's like, it's too much heat for me. It hurts my hand. I don't want to do it because it just doesn't last. All of that to say, lots of leave-in conditioner. Leave-in conditioner from Sebastian Potion number 9. It's the only one that works for me. And different shampoos do like terrible things to me. So it's like always a crapshoot. I was trying to not use any profanity at all, but it is a crapshoot.
Oh, I cuss left and right.
A really expensive shampoo that's supposed to be for my hair, and I use it and I'm like yeah, and then for like until I wash it again, I'm like, oh my god, well, this was not the right shampoo.
I love that was a question in the chat because The clips, the snippets of pictures of Lily that I'm playing after this are, first of all, Noel Gallagher talking about how he just can't tell anyone to say no to drugs. And then it's Johnny Marr and Bernard Sumner. But it ends up being, the snippet is about your hair.
Yeah. I know. It's like luster, cultural relevance.
So I love that. That just
Now,
organically came up. That
I
just
know.
happened.
I'm gonna totally send that to Johnny and be like, you said this to me. You said these words when you were a younger man.
Amazing. Everyone, go check out pictures of Lily. Sign up for the Substack. Follow on YouTube. Listen to the podcast. It's a joy. And Lily's up to so much. So her newsletters are just like, boom, 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 boom. Would you like to read about any fucking subject on earth? Like, I wrote it. Would you like to read about it? I wrote it. So that's what it...
Two Iran things in the next one.
Nice. Yes. And thank you for all that you do to tell that story and share your truth, you know.
Like stepping away from it, because I hear from a lot of people that it's helpful for them to understand what's going on when they read my stuff about Iran. And I was like, okay, as long as I'm not like bugging people or making them feel guilty or anything like that, because that's not the point. It's really just bringing awareness. And when people tell me that it's helpful, I'm just like, oh, okay, thank you for saying that.
Oh, I know. It is, it is an egoic exercise to be a music journalist, but nothing hits better than when someone's like, wow, that was great. I really liked that. I needed that. Thank you for that. And I'm like, what? Thank you. Tell me again.
Or when they quote your articles to you and you're like,
what? Because again,
that's only happened like a few times, but still I'm like, thanks.
Yeah, because it's like, it honestly feels like we're just doing this inside a fucking room. Because we are, but...
Just for us and the publicist.
Yeah, the publicists know. They're our biggest fans.
Yeah, I know.
Lily, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
So fun.
Yeah, super fun. We're going to have to... Wow, look at all that work. Look at all those sleepless nights. Oh my God, it keeps going. I love it. I aspire... if I could only have the internet towering over me. There it is, the wall of my work. Wow, it keeps going.
On the bottom shelf, those are all Lawrence's magazine covers.
Hell yeah. Shout out Lawrence.
Yeah.
Shout out Regal Standard. Oh my God, that's hot. That is hot.
Yeah. Anyway. All right. Thank you. All the plugs. Thank you.
Thank you. Talk to you
Thanks
real
for
soon.
tuning in. I really appreciate it and love your questions.
Yeah, great questions. Great episode. We'll have to do it again.
On the interweb.
Sometime. Go say hi to Lily. But now say bye to Lily. Bye. Oh. And we're back. That was really fun. And yes, our crew, so glad to see you in the chat. Thank you for coming in and asking the hard-hitting questions. Joey Headset, Torton Strike, as always. Jordan Streetsoul, love to see you. Thank you for tuning in. Also, Regal Standard, I know I saw you in there. Naughty. I hope that everybody enjoyed. All the lurkers out there who didn't ask questions but still enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed. And I want to, the annual Lily special, please, right? Add Lily to the annual. I would be happy to. Spring. Do lilies bloom in the spring? Or do they bloom at a different time? Anyway, I'm glad you all enjoyed this episode. I really did as well. I would really like to invite more journalists onto the program, if any journalists out there would be interested. But I would also love to just continue to expand what Cat Calls guests can be. You know, when I first talked to Lily about having her on the show, she was like, but I'm not a DJ, I'm not an artist. Like, do the people who watch Cat Calls care? And I'm like, yeah, I really do think that they would care because you fit into the whole culture And, you know, even if it was outside of this usual kind of electronic music sphere that I live inside of, you know, when I first started Cat Calls, I saw it as being almost like a variety show, and I tried different things. But how do Gaspar and Xavier smell? I don't know. You know, I bet they used to smell like cigarettes. They used to smell like cigarettes, but now they vape. Peace lilies are blooming. Okay, there we go. So then this would be Tord and Strike. You're doing great. I'm glad. Thanks for tuning in. Even though you're sick, you know, Cat Calls. You know, 4 out of 5 doctors recommend you watch Cat Calls when you're sick. It's much better than going outside. I promise you that. When you're sick, it's great to go outside. Actually. Anywho, I'm not a doctor. This is just for entertainment purposes. But as always, hit me with what you would like to see on Cat Calls. I think that the floodgates should be opened for Cat Calls to open its door for anyone. And this was really fun. And I look forward to more non-musician Cat Calls in the future. There most likely will be a Cat Calls 2 Thursdays from now. Thursday, May 16th. That is not finalized, so I will not tell you who it will be, but there should be a Cat Calls on May 16th. And May 30th, probably not. I might be on an on-the-road adventure around that time, but I'll keep you abreast of the situation. The best way to stay in touch with me and everything to do with Super Cat World, of course, is to follow me at Cat Says Kill or at Super Cat World. And if you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe, hit that like button, do all the fucking things that the kids do. I'm going to drop links to the Discord. I also noticed during this stream that the YouTube comments aren't showing up in the chat. So I'm going to do some back end work, and I'm going to make sure, because I thought they were all going to the chat, but it's just the Twitch chat. Of course, on YouTube, you'll see it running on the side, but I'm going to make sure that that's all saved. LP, Joby, Matt, Zoe, and Uffy, all people that I would love to have on the call. All people that have, at one point or another, been in conversation with me about being on Cat Calls. So I'm going to follow up on those conversations. I'm going to try to make it happen. It's going to be a great spring. On the way out, make sure back end work. Joey, the openers that you've seen, truly, they're iconic. Go follow Pictures of Lily. Go watch Pictures of Lily. Tune into Pictures of Lily. I promise, if you enjoyed today's conversation, you will love getting those regular updates in your newsletter inbox, which is your email. It's fucking 8:42 p.m. This is long. I'm out. This is Pictures of Lily. I love you all. See you on the internet.
Not mine, you know what I mean? You know, I'm not, you know, it's not big and it's not clever to take drugs, you know, it's not, you know, it's not, I'd rather be a healthy person, you know what I mean? But I'm afraid that, you know, the culture that I was brought up in Manchester from when I was 14 was like, it was around drugs and gangs, and that's just the fucking way it is, it's as simple as that. There's no getting away from it, you know. I'd love to give up drinking, I'd love to give up smoking, I'd love to give up taking drugs, but, you know, but I'm not going to be like a hypocritical fucking up my own arse, self-righteous fucker, like telling kids not to do it when I do it myself, you know what I mean? I won't denounce it because how can I denounce it, you know what I mean? No, it's not right, you know. But these are the people that go on and say, no, you know, it's all, you take drugs, and it's like, well, you know, good fucking deal, doesn't everyone? Well, apart from yourself, of course. Everyone does it anyway, right? And there's people who just deny it and they lie to themselves. But, which is fair enough, right? You know what I mean? But I can't, for the life of me, see what the fuck it's got to do with the music.
That's one of your best friends is a hairdresser and you live with him. And you've been smoking pot at 3 in the morning.
You get a good haircut, yeah.
You kind of just get on a concept, and that's what starts, you know. And you know.
I've had the same hair for the last 13 years. Pretty much.
That works for you, babe.
Well, I can't, it's like been shorter and longer, but the idea is the same. Basically.
Well, I'll examine it. I'll give you my critical.
Yeah. Or you'll just be like, yeah, you need to come around mine and meet my hairdresser because you can't go around looking like that no more.
I'll review it for you.
Yeah, okay, that'd be great.
Okay, it should be judged on health, cultural context, luster, bounce, and sheen.
Okay, I've got at least 4 of those. I've got luster, I've got bounce, I've got sheen. But style and cultural context, I really don't know.